messing up the Constitution. Well, you know.
Welcome to the Maui Liberty Network. I'm Joe Kent of the Maui Libertarian Party, and our co-host is Valerie Sisneros of Tea Party Maui. And we're here with Mark Redeker, owner of Maui Ammo and Gun Supply in Wailuku, to talk about the Second Amendment and gun ownership in Hawaii. We've got a lot to cover tonight, so we'll jump right in and start by reading the Second Amendment. Val?
Thanks. I'm going to read the Second Amendment of the Constitution of the United States of America, also known as the Bill of Rights. This is the exact reading of it. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed.
So we're hearing a lot about the Second Amendment these days, and my question is, why do we need it? I mean, a lot of people are talking about gun control, and we should ban guns. Should we keep them? It's in the Constitution, but do we really need the Second Amendment?
I would like to say, contrary to popular belief, the right has nothing to do with hunting. It is the founders ensuring the right of the people to protect themselves from a tyrannical government so that the people can remain free. Mark, what do you think?
Well, in 1837, the first assaults on the Second Amendment actually started, and it was actually the Federalist government, the government of the United States of America tried to take away the firearms from the people that had just gone through the War of 1812 and had gone through the Revolution and everything else. So your limits to the Second Amendment started way back in the early 1800s. And for year after year, decade after decade, basically century after century, there have been attempts at modifying this 27-word law.
And one of the words in that law is a well-regulated militia. Doesn't that mean that the Second Amendment only applies to a militia, an army?
Well, there have been a lot of discussions on that. The very first assault on the Second Amendment in 1837 was specifically addressed by the Supreme Court and the militia item. And the Supreme Court said because the Revolutionary War and the War of 1812 were fought by people coming out of their homes and arming themselves against attackers, that what would constitute a militia, a formal federal police force or a formal federal army, of which the United States had one of the smallest in the world at the time.
So you're saying that people needed to defend themselves against a government, and so because of that, everyone needed to have the right to be armed. But what about today? We live in the year, today it's 2013. The government's not going to come and attack us, and so why do we need guns?
Well, I think my own opinion is that most people want guns for the ability to protect themselves. Let's face it, I was a police officer for 15 years. I was on the Maui County Police Commission. I think we have a great police department. However, time is very critical when you're being held or when you're being accosted by a suspect.
So you're saying that if someone robs your house, if someone's robbing you on the street, that's why we need guns? Well,
it comes down to, if you look at places like Chicago, where they've disarmed the public, crime has gone absolutely sky high. And yet you look at other places where they haven't disarmed the public and where people openly are allowed to carry without even getting permits to carry, the crime is much lower. So you have to start asking yourself a very simple question here. If we disarm the public, who then really has the ability to produce firearms?
Okay, well, did you have anything to add?
I did. I just wanted to say that since 1982, gun ownership has increased by over 80 million. At the same time, crime rates have decreased by over half. And an overwhelming majority of gun crimes are committed with stolen or illegally obtained weapons. And I think that's important.
As gun ownership increases, crime decreases. But what about in other countries compared to the U.S.? The numbers that I looked up on multiple websites say that we've had 11,000 people dead as a result of guns in America.
In what time frame?
In every year.
Okay.
And
I'll
okay, but let me finish. Okay?
I'll let you finish with that. Go ahead.
And in the UK, it's 550. So whether or not it's thousands of people in America dying, there are more people in America dying as a result of guns than in the UK. The UK has banned guns. At least they're very strict there. Isn't that evidence that we should ban guns so that that when we ban guns that deaths go down?
I would give you that premise if you started it in about the 1820s. The problem you're facing is that in the UK, the population in the UK is 1/5 of the population of the United States of America. So by sheer numbers alone of people. Now, on top of that, the UK has much less crime in certain aspects because they're more proactive on how and what they do to the criminals when they get them. They are not as liberal as we are. Take in case the guy that broke into my gun store before we even tried to open. He's trying to break into a gun store to steal guns. He's a felon trying to arm himself with guns and ammunition. He received 20-year sentence. They combined them together for a 10-year sentence. He's eligible for parole after serving 10%, and now his first parole hearing is next month, less than 1 year after he actually broke into the store.
So they're soft on crime.
If you want to stop gun crime, lock people up. That's just that simple. Look at all of the horrible gun violent deaths that have been propagated on the television, all your major news channels. All of those all have one thing in common. They're all crimes. Not the crime itself of killing people with a gun, but they have murdered to get the gun, they have burglarized to get the gun, they're felons or they're mentally deranged in possession of a gun. Now, yes, we can take the guns away from every law-abiding citizen, but will that make us safe? Will that keep the people that shouldn't have guns anyway, will it keep them from having a gun? I don't think so. I don't think they're going to turn the guns in.
You know, one thing I noticed when coming into the store, I don't own a gun. I've never shot a gun before. I'm a little nervous around guns. And when you go into a store like this, the first thing I did is I was nervous. And I behaved myself because there were obviously, I'm surrounded by guns. I can't imagine how someone would break into your shop. Oh, did they have a gun themselves, or how did that work?
They were trying to steal guns and ammo, is what they were trying to do. His statement in court was that he wanted to steal the guns and ammo to sell them to other people to make money for drugs. Now, I have to go through, if you wanted to become a gun owner, you have to go through a class. You have to go through a background check. You have to sign away your right to medical privacy for psychological reasons. You have to give up all kinds of things. And you have to go through all kinds of training, and you have to go through all kinds of fingerprinting to look into your background. Yet you have a person who is a known felon. He had outstanding warrants from California. He's breaking into a gun store. So really, if we ban guns, who are we protecting? Who are we going to protect?
It appears to me that the formula for decreasing crime is to increase the number of responsible gun owners and, like you said, prosecute to the fullest extent of the existing laws that we already have those who commit gun-related crimes or possess weapons illegally. We have plenty of laws on the books, I would say, wouldn't you, Mark?
Yeah. Most of the people that own guns that I know that are responsible say lock them up. Don't use it as a bargaining chip. Firearms laws are always used as bargaining chips when it comes to sentencing. They use them so that most of your firearms laws are, if you use a firearm in the commission of a crime, you must do at least 1 year or 2 years, depending upon what state it is. Now, if you're caught for burglary or auto theft or things like that, you're not going to do a full year probably. But if you have a firearms violation added in, you're going to have to do that full year. So they use the firearms violation as a bargaining chip. My seventh year as a police officer, California passed a law, use a gun, go to prison, 1 year minimum, mandatory minimum. In the first 2 years, they didn't prosecute one person. Does that mean in California they didn't use a gun for 2 years? No, what it meant was they were using them as bargaining chips. So there was a large backlash on the part of the public, at least in the Central California where I was a police officer, saying if you charge them, really charge them. Don't use it as a bargaining chip. Send them to jail.
I want to talk a little bit about your store and something new that you've just implemented, which is the Situation Room.
Yes,
Can you explain what that is?
We just opened it up yesterday. In fact, the Situation Room is a company called TI. They have a training system. Now, the training system has many different facets to it. It has the commercial, which is just fun. It has actual training for people to handle firearms. It has law enforcement applications, and it has educational applications as well. It's an electronic shooting range. It's not like Call of Duty or anything you'd see on TV. It's not a cartoon. It's actually high-def movies that are then filtered through a computer to give you different outcomes depending upon how you react to the scenarios presented to you.
If someone comes into your store, for example, I came into your store, I'm nervous about guns, and they wanted to get comfortable with guns, they could use this to help them get the feel of it. Is that right?
Well,
right?
Yes. This is it's a real gun. We substitute ammunition for a carbon dioxide magazine, which gives you the recoil, which gives you the feel of the gun, and it shoots an infrared laser beam at a 9-foot tall, 14-foot wide screen. So you can start off shooting at just a regular silhouette, a regular bullseye. You can shoot at reactive targets that move and things like that. And then eventually you can go into advanced training like home invasion trainings and things like that. Some of the scenarios are really phenomenal. It isn't just to train people to shoot, it's to train them whether they should or should not shoot given the current laws that are in place.
Do you find that people that come in your store are nervous about guns?
I find that probably on a weekly basis, I talk at least 5 to 8 people out of buying guns.
Really?
Yes. We talk a lot of people out of buying guns because they're coming into the store looking to buy a gun for the wrong reasons. We are very different than our competitors. We are family oriented. We look at what people want to do. You get a guy that comes in the door with his girlfriend or his fiance or his wife, and he wants to buy a great big gun for her to be at home. And I look at them and I said, have you ever shot a gun? And she kind of sheepishly would say, well, no. And yet he wants to buy the biggest gun that he can find. I don't know whether it's for him or for her. It makes no difference at that point. We take her aside and we talk with her and we talk with him. We have training aids we have set up, and we go through and we explain to him, hey, look, if you really want her to be a part of your life and a part of shooting and a part of enjoying this, start her off with something that she can control, start her off with knowledge, and then bring her up slowly to where they can shoot. And that's not just with women. I'm not being sexist, but we have men the same thing. We have men that come in the door and they've never shot a gun, but they think they want to try one. Now, the new Situation Room is going to really open a lot of doors for us, because instead of handing them a gun that they have to shoot with the bullet and the smoke and all the other stuff, we can give them a real gun, which will give them about 50 to 70% of what it really is like to shoot a gun.
You have the kickback.
With the kickback and all the other things that go with it. We have surround sound. They have to wear hearing protectors, the whole bit. But it guides them into it in such a way that they can see what it's like. Of course, the taking of a human life is very sacred thing. I mean, it's a very scary thing. As a police officer, I've been in those positions, and most citizens don't really want to be there, but they don't know that. Well, with a Situation Room, they can go through those types of situations and no harm, no foul, rewind and see what happened.
I wonder if it kind of makes their what do you call it? Their blood pressure rise and all of that.
The company that supplied this,
adrenaline, right?
The company that supplied us with this system supplied us with an AED. They said that people will get so excited and so wound up in what they're doing that you have to have an AED and trained personnel on site because they can get that excited.
Let me play devil's advocate. Someone who gets used to this are the people who say video games cause gun violence. This is kind of like a video game, and doesn't that?
It's a little bit different than a video game. A video game is you are manipulating controls, not a gun. You're manipulating controls, and you're shooting at cartoons. This you're shooting at high def real people. Okay, and you're using a gun, a real gun. So it is significantly different than a cartoon where you can take a chainsaw and saw somebody in half. Mm-hmm. You don't have that ability here. And then whatever you do in the Situation Room, we go back through, we show you where your bullet struck, and we show you what could have happened differently. Now, our scenarios are based upon a tree effect. So you have a branch coming out on the tree, and then depending upon what you do, you get other responses. A lot of the times, if you give verbal compliance, you stop, drop the knife. If they drop the knife, then you have compliance, and you tell them step away from the knife, and the thing moves along in a much better avenue. But if you don't utilize, all the skills that you have, just go to the gun, it actually stops the scenario and it says you failed. Now, I don't know one video game that kids play that said you failed and didn't do the right thing. So it is significantly different.
Well, if you're just tuning in, this is the Maui Liberty Network. We're talking about gun ownership and the Second Amendment. We're here with Valerie Sisneros, our co-host, and Mark Redeker, owner of Maui Ammo and Gun Supply. Hawaii has the lowest amount of gun ownership in the United States. What does that say about that? Do you see some of the attitudes in Hawaii for guns different than in other parts of America?
I think what you have to do on that number is look at per capita numbers. You're looking at the total number of guns, and since there's only about 1 million people that live in the state of Hawaii, but if you look at per capita, we are one of the highest. We are one of the highest ownerships of guns.
Oh, okay. So it's would you call it a pro-gun state then?
No. It's absolutely no pro-gun.
Right. I just want to talk a little bit about what you have to go through to get a gun here. And let's see, first you go to the class. You just have a couple days of class where you learn about, first a lawyer comes and talks to you for one evening, and then about the laws, because that's the most important thing in the state of Hawaii anyway. And they... let's say, and then the next day you get to shoot. They teach you about guns and about shooting. You get your certification, and then you go to a gun shop and you decide which firearm you want. Excuse me, this is going to take a minute. You decide which firearm you want. You go to the police. You say, I want to buy this firearm. I'm going to buy it from Mark at Meg's. This is... Do you have to get the serial numbers
No,
at that point?
the only thing you don't have to have is a serial number.
Right, and then they have you wait 14 days. It's a cooling off period.
Yeah, for a pistol.
For a handgun. Mm-hmm. And then you go back. If your background check is good, then you go back and you get a certificate or a permit to carry.
Permit to
acquire. And then you go back to the gun shop and you give it to Mark, and then he gives you your gun, and then you have to go right back to the police station within 1 day or something.
You get 3 days.
3 days to register that gun and leave your fingerprints and all that. And then you can go shoot. I am from Colorado. You go to Bass Pro Fishing there, and I asked them, what do you have to do to get a handgun here? And they said, show us your driver's license. And I go, and what else? And he goes, well, that's pretty much it. He goes, it has to be a Colorado driver's license, and we do if you want to go shopping for 30 minutes, we're going to do a background check, and you can come back and you pretty much walk out of the store in 30 minutes. It's totally different than here.
But isn't it great that we have these laws protect us from the criminals who want to get the guns and the people who are the crazy people who want to get the guns? It's hard for them to follow those laws. Is that a argument for for regulation, more regulation in gun ownership, or?
Well, from my standpoint, I welcome the oversight by the government looking and doing background checks. I think that the system that the state of Hawaii has is manageable. I think it's good. I think the only negative on the system is they don't extend it far enough. Now I know here's a gun owner saying they don't extend it far enough. I think what should happen, I think that our legislature should look at changing the law ever so slightly, that prior to taking the class to learn about guns and handling guns and all that, you should have your background check done. Right now, we had an unfortunate situation about 5 months ago out at Ukamami shooting range with a woman that took her own life. Now, had she gone through a background check, they would have never allowed her to own a gun. But they weren't going to do the background check until after she finished the training and everything else. My personal thought on it was, why not do a background check on people before they go buy a gun? Now, medical marijuana. We have received a letter just recently from the ATF. ATF says that medical marijuana card doesn't give them a pass to own a gun and have medical marijuana. Medical marijuana constitutes addicted to a narcotic as far as the federal government and the ATF is concerned. So we have people that have come in here and said, well, I have a medical marijuana card. Can I buy a gun? I said, sorry, I won't sell to you. So there is right now in the state of Hawaii no matching up of medical marijuana cards and people trying to get permits to purchase guns. There's no cross-reference.
Can I push you on that? On the other side, wouldn't more regulation, if it's harder for the good guys to get the guns, then it'll be easier for the bad guys. They'll just skip the laws, and now we've got more bad guys with guns.
Well,
so
case in point, the guy that broke into my shop. We weren't even open yet, and he was trying to break in to steal guns because he could never qualify through the legal system to buy a gun.
I would like to talk about responsible gun ownership and training. You know, they recommend when you buy a handgun or any kind of firearm that you go practice once a month minimum, about once a month, so you're familiar with it if you ever need to use it. I was wondering, Mark, who's in charge? Well, who's in charge of the range? Is that county, state, or what? And we only have one on the island of Maui.
We only have one public range currently on the island of Maui. We're in the final stages of putting a 4-lane indoor range in here at our shop. It's small, but it will be a 25-yard indoor range. The Ukamahami range is County of Maui property, and it is leased basically by, or it's actually has a lease to run contract issued through Valley Isle Shooters. Valley Isle Shooters divides up the time. Now, out of that range, you have everyone from the Coast Guard to the National Guard to the police department to security officers. You have all these different stakeholders that need time on the range. Unfortunately, the County of Maui and the Valley Isle Shooters only allows 3 days a month. 3 days a month for the public to go shoot. Tomorrow, Saturday morning, will be one of those open days. There will be over 250 people out there trying to squeeze into roughly 50 to 55 places to shoot.
And what does that do to people's aim?
Well, if you don't have the time to spend on the range, then you can get rusty. You know, I mean, I've taught shooting to people since I was roughly 20 years old, and I'm almost 60. And I've taught everything from police academies, I've taught SWAT tactics, I've taught Boy Scouts, I've taught air rifle to high schools. And the reality is the more you shoot, the more you practice, the better off you are. But that will not teach you good common sense. When to use, when not to use. And that's one of the things that we looked at with this new system that we have. Puts you in situations where, are you using the best common sense? Can I walk away from this? Can I get away? If you can get away, why stand there and try to shoot?
I want to talk a little bit about this open carry versus concealed carry versus banning in states. What is the problem with open carry? What problems does that cause, and why not open carry?
I'm not a large proponent of open carry. I'm not. As much as I would like to be able, and I, by law, am allowed to carry concealed for life as a honorably retired police officer under LEOSA 2004. But open carry can cause a lot of apprehension on the part of people. It really can. If we were going to say Yes, we want to allow citizens in the state of Hawaii to carry. I would be more of a proponent of concealed carry. Open carry just creates a lot of problems because people see it once they know it's there. I mean, we have a rule in our gun store that even active law enforcement, if they're going to come in the door, they have to identify themselves as a law enforcement, and if they have a concealed firearm, they have to identify themselves to us. Because what we don't want is someone walking up behind them and trying to disarm them or steal the gun. We have all of our guns behind the counter and the ammunition separate. If someone walks in the door with a gun in their hip, there could be a problem.
But open carry, you said people are apprehensive. Doesn't that mean that they behave themselves? If you see someone carrying a gun down the street, you think twice about committing a crime. So isn't that an argument for open carry?
Not necessarily, because in your prisons you can actually. I was watching. It was funny. I was watching Locked Up on one of the channels. I can't remember which one. I think it was MSN or something like that. And they actually had a sequence where inmates were practicing disarming the police and people with guns, and they had a car drawn on the ground with soap, and they had guns they made out of soap, and the criminals were practicing disarming people. So again, open carry means that the gun is out, it's visible, people can see it, and yes, law-abiding citizens would be, okay, well, he's got a gun. But the criminals, the true criminals, that just gives them the knowledge that, okay, I know where I can get it now. It's a proven fact that if you go into a bank in, let's say, California, go into a bank in California and you go to rob the bank, if you don't go in with a gun but you take the gun from the security guard, it's no longer first degree. It's second degree because you armed yourself in the commission of the crime. You didn't come there with the intent to use a firearm.
Interesting.
Okay, so what you want to do is you want to, my opinion, conceal the firearm so that not everybody knows that you've got it. Most people that have a firearm and are willing to use it to protect a life or protect people don't really want everyone to know that you've got it. Because not necessarily will you always jump in. Sometimes it's better to be a good witness and watch what goes on than try to step into something that you don't know what's really going on.
If you're just tuning in, this is the Maui Liberty Network. We're talking about gun ownership in Hawaii and the Second Amendment. We're here with Mark Redeker, owner of Maui Ammo and Gun Supply. Sandy Hook, Virginia Tech, Washington Navy Yard shooting. There's just been two shootings recently at LAX. And what's going on with these mass shootings in America? Is violent killing on the rise?
Can I say something?
Go right ahead.
Okay. There is a continued connection between mental illness and mass murders. All of these recent mass murders were mentally ill people who, by all accounts, should have been incarcerated because they posed obvious dangers to society before they committed these horrendous acts of violence. The ACLU and many other gun control advocates oppose involuntary incarceration of the mentally ill. They are of the belief that it is better to disarm the entire population and take away our constitutional freedoms than to incarcerate a few mentally ill persons who are people already know that they're dangerous. So this is something that is I think is a huge problem. So
the solution to mass killings is to victimize the mentally ill?
I wouldn't say victimize the mentally ill, but I would say monitor the mentally ill. What would be wrong with, instead of disarming the public, what would be wrong with telling a psychiatrist that is treating someone who that they know it poses a danger to themselves or another, or has a belief that they could possibly be presenting a danger to themselves or other, notify the police that this person shouldn't have a gun. Let's look at Aurora. Okay? Let's look at Aurora. That person was being treated for severe mental problems. We all know that. I mean, that came out in the trial and everything else. But his psychiatrist said because of patient confidentiality, she did not notify the police. He obtained a firearm through legal means. There was a background check done. But because nobody said, hey, this guy is crazy as a loon, and he shouldn't have guns, and you should keep an eye on him, because nobody said anything, they gave him guns.
But isn't the solution instead of okay? So if I'm sorry, if I see someone who is insane that has a gun, the check to that is lots of people who are sane who also have guns.
No, the check to that is you see someone that is insane or someone that you don't think should have a gun. The check to that is call the police and notify the police, hey, there's a problem here. My next door neighbor's crazy as a loon and he walks around with a gun in his front yard. In the state of Hawaii, he's in violation of the law just by mere walking in his front yard with a gun. So there can be things can be done, but you have to open your mouth. Now, let's disarm everybody because we have crazy loons. And that just doesn't even begin to make sense to me.
And you hear on all of these mass murders afterwards, all of these people come forward and say, oh, yeah, we knew that. He was crazy as a loon. You know, I mean, you hear all the stories after the fact of all the killings, all of the red flags that were raised by neighbors and friends and family, and it's afterwards. And I agree with Mark. Speak up before.
If you're just tuning in, this is the Maui Liberty Network. I'm Joe Kent, and our co-host is Valerie Sisneros. We're here with Mark Redeker, owner of Maui Ammo and Gun Supply, and we're talking about guns and the Second Amendment. One of the most hot-button issues is school shootings. Seems like whenever there's a school shooting for about a year, we hear about it. They're tragic. They're serious. What is the solution to school shootings? How do we protect schools? And do guns belong in the school?
Well, I'm a father, 3 sons, all, one of them raised in San Jose, the other 2 raised on Maui. Do we want guns in the schools? Heck no. I mean, that's obvious. Do we have guns in the school? Heck yes, that's obvious. We have school resource officers that are armed. The reason that they're there is to help protect the students at a school.
We have guns in the school?
Oh, of course we do.
Where's that?
Every school on Maui on Maui. We have what's called school resource officers. They're there at the school to be a fast response and to also have the police presence and be able to answer questions and help young people depending upon what problems occur. Everything from bullying to anything else that could occur. Interesting.
We have to wait because I work at a school. I've never seen a single gun
really
in the school. So
wow.
In any school I've been to. So
we recently there was an incident that occurred at one of the high schools in Maui, in the central part of the island, and one of the school resource officers was on scene. There was reported a person with a gun that came over a fence and onto the property. That officer was able to respond very quickly. They went to lockdown mode, and he coordinated the response of all the other people coming onto the campus. The police worked that scene for roughly 4.5 hours, searching room by room, nook and cranny, and closets and everything, until they cleared it. But yes, there are guns on the school. There are law enforcement. There are school resource officers, and their job is to be there just in case there's a problem, and to also help with whatever young people need help with.
But isn't that a case that for guns in the schools, after all, that was a success?
Yes, that was a success because it was a trained professional. And these people actually go through active school shooting scenarios with, they use submunitions at night. They practice searching the schools. Not only they do, but the Maui Police Department does. The Maui Police Department is a very progressive and a good department. It has very good knowledge of its schools and what they need to do, and they can mobilize a lot of people very quickly. I feel very, very comfortable with my kids going to school at a school in Maui.
The argument against it is, of course, we have a resource officer who has a gun, and a child comes along and takes it and plays with it, and
well, the officers are trained into weapons retention tactics, and there's a lot that goes into it. The design of holsters nowadays, you have to get your finger in the right place. You have to activate a safety catch. You have to flip over one thing and do another thing. A lot of people don't even know about all of that, much less let's face it, is a 14-year-old kid going to be able to battle a guy that's been trained for years and years as to how to maintain his gun? They also have tasers and other things too.
Sandy Hook, Columbine, those were different scenarios. We didn't have any resource officers, and tragically, many people died. And the shooters had assault rifles.
Yes, they did.
Let's talk about assault rifles.
The shooters had assault rifles at Sandy Hook specifically. That they killed somebody, his mother. He killed his mother, broke into her safe, and took a weapon illegally. So you have a minor who is a felon by many factors before he even gets to the school. What can we do to stop a felon from entering the school? That's the question. It isn't stopping another kid. It's what can we do to protect our schools and stop felons from entering the school?
But isn't the question before that, what can we do to ban all assault rifles?
Well, any gun can kill a kid. It doesn't have to be just an assault rifle. What is an assault rifle? If you want to get to that, an assault rifle is a firearm that has been developed over the years for multiple purposes. Some people say that assault rifle is a self-defense weapon only. I sell assault rifles in calibers that you can use to hunt deer. We have people here that use them for hunting pigs, hunting goats, hunting deer. They have interchangeable barrels. So, to say that its only purpose is to shoot people, I'm sorry. I don't buy that.
I mean, a lot of people...
It's not even close.
A lot of people say, okay, for hunting, why would you need a gun, like an automatic gun that goes da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, and why would you ever need that? People who say, yes, we need guns. Yes, we need guns to protect ourselves, but we don't need these guns, the da-da-da-da-da-da, where you can just kill lots of people.
No, you can use any gun. You can use any gun. It's sad, it's pathetic, but to target one class of gun, it's pointless. Now, it just so happens that there are more of them in the environment, right now, and that are easily accessible than probably any other class of guns. But we've had people take a shotgun that they use for hunting ducks and take a hacksaw to the barrel, cut the barrel off, and take that to school. So it isn't just assault rifles, it's any gun. Now, the question is, and I would be happy to discuss that at great length, what can we do to keep guns out of the school, not assault rifles? Because any gun is a potential to kill.
Can I push you on this one more time? I'm sorry. The assault rifles are a slippery slope to people owning bombs and tanks and things like that.
I don't quite understand that. Okay, you're gonna have to explain that a little bit better.
Okay, I'm trying to. Yeah. Okay, so it's like an assault rifle is like a gateway drug towards even crazier weapons, like something like, should people be allowed to own a bomb? Should people be allowed to own a tank? Things like that.
Well, in I think it's 46 other states, you can own a tank. In 46 other states, you can own destructive devices. You can own bazookas. You can own things. But you have to have licenses. You have to pay taxes. You have to tell the government where it's stored. You have to, there's a lot that goes into this.
So you can own tanks.
How many times have you seen a tank, attack a school? How many times have you seen bazookas attack a school?
Never.
Never.
Right.
Never. But the largest mass killing of students in history wasn't even a gun.
What was it?
It was dynamite. They blew up school. So let's ban dynamite. Well, it is, basically. You have to have special permits to be able to use it and possess it and things like that. Mm-hmm. So, it isn't just assault rifles. I'm for keeping all guns out of the school. That would be wonderful. Let the school resource officers have them. And I think our kids would be a whole lot safer going into lockdowns, things like that. They're all well and good, but we need to do, again, what we discussed earlier. Well, let's take the people, the felons, that are not supposed to be in possession of guns, and let's do something with them. Let's do something with them.
I think the majority of these mass murders have been committed by males between 18 and 24 years old. And I wonder what that's all about. I mean, I think it has something to do with the violent video games. I'm not a proponent of those, and I think if you spend a major part of your life in your room with violent video games, I think it can. That's just my opinion. I think it can, and it has been shown that most of these mass murderers that did commit these murders were
Big-time gamers.
Big-time gamers, and it's just one right after the other after the other. So
okay, well, I have to say though, I love video games. I play them all the time, and I have.
You saw people in half with chainsaws?
No, I don't. Yeah, I've never killed a
Grand
bunny.
Theft
Yeah.
Auto 2. That
Yes.
was banned in my house. I'm sorry.
Oh, really?
My kids were allowed to go out and shoot. We taught them how to shoot at early ages. We taught them how to safely handle guns. We made sure that the guns were locked. We made sure that the guns were in safes and everything else. But when they came home with the Grand Theft Auto 2, where I heard my son say, yeah, and I poked my head in the door and looked, and here he is. Here's a chainsaw sawing a hooker in half on the streets of Los Angeles. I walked in, pulled the video game out, in which I'm told it really messes them up. And I pulled it out and I took it and broke it in half and said, here's your game back.
and there is the answer: parenting. Not government.
It starts in the home.
It does.
Okay, let's move on to the laws in our state.
Well, Hawaii is a may carry state, may carry concealed. However, all the chiefs of police have all decided through conferences and things that they've talked over that because the law says you may carry, if they issue a concealed carry permit, then they feel that they might be held liable or responsible if somebody uses the gun. So therefore, they will not issue a permit to anyone. So although Hawaii is a may carry state, and it's listed, and the other day I was listening to one of the talk shows while I was driving, and they said, yeah, even Hawaii is a may carry state. And I thought, what a joke. They don't realize that not one person has a permit to carry. Now, under the Hawaii Rifle Association, there is something called the Concealed Carry Initiative, and it's a lawsuit that's been filed in court, and they're fighting to get that changed to you shall be allowed to carry. Now,
May, I'm confused. So,
well, may, they don't have to allow you. Shall, they must provide a permit.
aha. So, in a shall, they have to.
They have to approve based upon criteria.
In a may carry state,
They don't have to approve anybody.
It depends on their mood. Whether
Well,
or not,
there's no mood. They don't approve anybody.
okay.
I know people that deliver jewelry, cases of jewelry, and they can't get a permit. I know people that are bodyguards for visiting, dignitaries and visiting movie stars. They can't get a permit to carry. So people that actually have legitimate reasons to carry can't get a permit. Now there's a lot of folks that come into my store, hey, I got to carry a concealed firearm and blah, 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 blah. And they walk out and I go, well, I'm glad that they don't issue permits.
Can
Okay.
you? What are the laws for a civilian who wants to have a gun? What can they? They can never have a gun.
You can own a gun.
Okay.
You go through all the permitting and all the licensing and all the other things that go into that, and then you can have your gun and you can have it at home. And you can take your gun home. You can take your gun to the range. You can take your gun to a private property to shoot it if it's legal to shoot there. You can take it to hunting. You can take it to your place of business.
You can have it in your car.
No. Not unless you're going from point A to point B.
It depends on where you're going. How does someone prove that you weren't going somewhere?
Go ahead.
Well, the cops know when the range is open. So if you, that's part of it anyway. So if you happen to be, the range is open on Saturday and Sunday. If you happen to have a gun in your car on Thursday, well, no, it's open on Thursdays too. on
Wednesday.
Wednesday, you're basically a felon, right?
You go out to Ugamahami, you shoot, and your wife calls you and says, hey, on your way home, stop at Costco and pick up milk and bread. And you pull into Costco parking lot. Your gun is in a case. It's locked in the trunk. You're perfectly legal. You were legal right up to the point where you pulled into the Costco parking lot. At that point, you're illegal because you are not on a direct route going from point A to point B.
And that is a felony.
Yeah.
Right. And I wanted to talk about...
It's called place to carry.
Place to carry.
Place to carry.
Right. And then there is the issue of how many rounds you can have in your magazine. And here in Hawaii, the law is 10 rounds.
Hawaii passed a law in 1997 that banned a lot of guns outright. We say they're on the endangered species list. Assault pistols, things like that, guns that really had, and in my opinion, really no real purpose. You know, an AR-15 pistol, an AK-47 pistol, no real need for it. I mean, what's its purpose? Well, it's to make a lot of noise, you know, make holes in the paper. I particularly didn't really care one way or another on that law. I mean, because there's really no purpose. But the problem you're facing is that part of that was they banned any magazine. Now, an AR-15 rifle takes the same magazine as an AR-15 pistol. The AR-15 pistol by statute is illegal. Now, Honolulu has said that an AR-15 rifle cannot have a 30-round magazine because it could fit in a pistol, even though the pistols are illegal by statute. So the
rifle's legal, the pistol isn't.
The pistol is not. So because the pistol is illegal and you can't own or possess the pistol, therefore Honolulu police have said you can't own or possess the magazine. We have people that come from Honolulu to my shop to buy 30-round magazines to take back to Honolulu to use in their AR-15 rifle, because they can't sell AR-15 magazines in Honolulu. Now, this is still the state of Hawaii. It's not the state of Honolulu and the state of Maui. It's the state of Hawaii. All gun laws should be the same. But yet, in Honolulu, they say the AR-15 pistol, they say the AR-15 magazine, 30-round magazine, is illegal. Now, we sell 50-round, we sell 30s, 20s, 10s, and 5s. Depending upon if you're hunting, you need a 5-round magazine or whatever. But it's, unfortunately, it's a lack of continuity caused by lack of leadership in the legislature for not having good laws that can be that are enacted that will, in fact, give good guidance to the local police departments and the local government.
When people are confused about gun laws, when there's a lot of different laws for different places in the same area, what does that do? What's the problem with that?
It's huge confusion. You go to the shooting range in Honolulu, you have to shoot once, bang, 2 seconds, 1001, 1002, bang, 1001, 1002, bang. All right? And you can only have 5 bullets in the gun. You come to Maui, you go out to Ukamahami, you can have a 30-round mag, and you can shoot just as fast as you can shoot. Now, different rules, different islands. How crazy is that? This is the state of Hawaii. Let's have rules in the state of Hawaii that really work.
But I am not a proponent of federal laws. I do think it should be for the states, each state to decide. But I do think it's a problem when you go from state to state, because can you talk a little bit about that? How
it's very difficult. They have books they have published large books, sizes of volumes of the Bible. And if you want to go cross country and you want to take a gun and you want to, say, end up in Montana to hunt, each state you go through has all these different laws. And it makes it very, very difficult. I am a little bit different than Val in this, that I think that the federal government should have the lead in setting a law. They should set the laws. They have set the laws through the ATF. They've said that you must have background checks. They said that you must, if you want to have something other than a standard type rifle or a standard type gun, you have to have special permits from them. So there are good laws that are out there. It's when you start getting into the little fiefdoms and all these little areas and people start passing their own little rules. Let's look at Chicago. No guns. Guns are banned. Okay, well, they became the murder capital of the world. And then,
so your rationale for having the federal government do that, A, it creates less confusion, and B, there would be more
uniformity and standardization.
Standardization.
Hawaii, you can get a permit to acquire a firearm, a long gun or a shotgun, and that permit is good for 1 year. You can buy as many guns as you want during that year time. Handguns, each individual handgun is a separate permit. Now, who's to say that I don't go off the deep end, I get my permit on January the 1st, and on February I have a complete mental meltdown? Okay? The police aren't going to review me for another permit for another 10 months.
So you're saying that they should review...
There should be a review process.
People
there should be the different parts of the government, just like after 9/11. Nobody talked to each other, so we didn't really know what was going on. You can like it down to the police are not talking to the Department of Health, who is issuing medical marijuana cards. And they're not talking to the other part of the Department of Health, who's dealing with people with mental problems. Okay. So they're not coordinating together to take the guns away from. I get people all the time that have a temporary restraining order filed against them because they're going through a divorce. They walk in the door and say, the police are going to take my guns unless I turn them in. I can turn them into you and you can sell them. I take all their guns in, I give them a receipt for their guns, and then we sell their guns legally, or we transfer them to somebody else that is legal to have those guns. So that person is being proactive. The lawyers are figuring this out. Unfortunately, our government isn't figuring it out.
If we've got more federal power under guns, why not go to worldwide power, UN making a national gun ban?
Well, again, is who's controlling? We are going now from a small fiefdom, Maui County having rules, the Honolulu having rules, to the United Nations having rules, telling the United States of America and its citizens what to do and how to do it. I don't buy that. I think one world order is probably not going to be a good thing, not just for guns, but for everything.
So is that something that they're thinking about doing?
Well, the United States has already signed I think the Secretary of State signed the gun treaty ban. Now, it has to go to the Congress, it has to be approved, and I doubt it'll pass. I really do. The people, I think there'll be enough political pressure, and we're coming into the midterm elections, and I don't think that's going to happen.
Just for the sake of argumentation, more federal power with guns, wouldn't that create more federal restrictions on guns ultimately, and it has the chance to create more federal bans on guns?
Right now, there's a good check and balance between the NRA and all the other stakeholders that want to own guns and things like that. They put a lot of pressure on their legislators. I'm not saying increase the numbers of laws. I think we have very good laws the way we are, but we need to peak and tweak those laws to protect us from the people that shouldn't have guns.
I just wanted to say the Second Amendment was written to protect the rights of the people and the states to prevent the abuse of power. So to me, and I've read, there is no mention in the Constitution whatsoever giving the federal government the authority to restrict the people from owning or bearing arms or ammo. I see it as just way too much power for the federal government.
You think it should be down to the states and counties and things like that?
I understand what you're saying, but federal government is just too big.
Well, and again, I'm not professing more laws, but what I am professing is that we need a standardization of the laws that we have. We need continuity, because I am the most fearful. Here I am a gun owner, okay? Been using guns my whole life. Here I am a gun owner, using guns my whole life. And it comes down to I am fearful as heck of the people that are not being locked up. They're going to break in, steal a gun, and go do something bad. Mm-hmm. That's my fear. And if you go watch some of these TV shows, the criminals, their biggest fear is attacking a house with a gun owner. If they know that they can get into a house that has no guns, that's the house they're going to go after.
We're talking about laws. We're talking about Hawaii laws and federal laws and worldwide laws. But I want to go down to the state laws. According to this report, Arizona is a much deadlier state in terms of guns than Hawaii. Hawaii has some of the strictest gun laws in America. Doesn't that say that the stricter the gun law, the less crime there is, and the more freedom? Arizona has freer gun laws than in Hawaii, and yet it has the most likely to die. You're 5 times more likely to die from a gun in Arizona than Hawaii. So hooray, Hawaii's gun laws.
Well, okay.
Let's talk about immigration.
Yeah, let's talk about let's talk about the status of the people that are being killed. Who's doing the killing? Is it the police? You know, your numbers, you're just saying a blank number that you're more likely to be killed. Okay? Now, Arizona's got 8.5 or 10 times the population of Hawaii. Mm-hmm. Okay? Its criminal activity is significantly higher than the state of Hawaii. So I don't know whether it's the Hawaii law or whether it's just the fact that there are significant other factors that take place in Arizona.
This says 15 deaths per 100,000 in Arizona and 2 deaths per 100,000 in Hawaii. But you're right. You're questioning who's dying, who's doing the killing, who's doing this shooting, what are the circumstances.
I saw on the border wars just the other night where 2 border agents ended up getting in a shootout with drug smugglers, and they were in Arizona. Now, did they shoot and kill those 2 drug smugglers, and are those 2 drug smugglers part of that equation?
We're in the middle of the ocean, and Arizona's a border state, and so...
You just don't know. Right. Look at the total population again. We're barely 1 million people. And we have some very strict laws. There's no doubt about it. Place to carry and things like that. But implementing more laws, is it going to make us safer? I don't think so, because the majority of the gun deaths in Hawaii are, again, criminals that are in possession of stolen guns.
I think it's really important that we can learn how to responsibly defend ourselves. The fact is, policemen cannot be everywhere in every dangerous situation the minute it happens. So many times it's after the fact, and in a majority of instances. And I believe it is our right to be able to defend ourselves and our families.
We have magazine articles every month that appear in the NRA publications and other publications as well, and it talks about the armed citizen. It talks about the incidents that occur where someone used a firearm to protect their own life. I think you have several examples of that. 80-year-old people that have used a firearm to defend themselves in their own driveway, in their own house.
It doesn't get reported in the news. It doesn't make national headlines.
That's not good press. The drive-by media does not want to talk about something that doesn't coincide with, certain aspects.
This is the Maui Liberty Network. We're talking with Mark Redeker, owner of Maui Ammo and Gun Supply. We're talking about the Second Amendment, and let me read it again. The Second Amendment says, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Many people think about the Second Amendment in terms of the government should not be allowed to take our guns away. And to a lot of people today, that seems like a completely ridiculous idea. Why would the government take our guns away? They're never going to take... Obama's president, we live in the year 2013. We can't even imagine the government taking our guns away. So that seems like a completely ridiculous thing. Would the government ever do that?
Well, between 1911 and the 1990s, there were 9 countries. I know you're talking about America, but there were 9 other countries: Turkey, Soviet Union, China, Germany, Cambodia, Guatemala, China again, Uganda, Rwanda, where almost 200 million people total were unable to defend themselves because they were disarmed by the government. They were rounded up and exterminated. It sounds hard to believe. We can't even comprehend that here in America. But it has happened time and time again throughout history. I mean, that's 2/3 of the population of the entire United States of America who were rounded up and exterminated. And these were citizens, Armenians, political dissidents, Jews, Catholics, 100,000 Mayan Indians in Guatemala, and Christians once again. I think it's so possible. It is so possible. It's happened time and time again.
I'll end with one statement. During the last legislative session, they introduced, the legislature, in their infinite wisdom, introduced some really bizarre laws. Some really way far out there laws, gun laws. Every year, the legislative session gears up and they come up with some real doozies. This last one was by far some of the most far-reaching and controlling, because again, right after Sandy Hook, this is what they jumped in the bandwagon, and they were going to do all kinds of wild things. And we had a computer set up, and we were going day by day looking at all the bills that were passing through, some of the really, really wild ones. And there was a gentleman that came into the store, and his English was not very good, and I was having trouble understanding him. And we were looking at it, and there was 5 or 6 of us all crowded around this laptop, and we were looking at these laws, and we were shaking our heads and talking, and, well, you know, this one wouldn't be that bad except for this, and back and forth we went. And this gentleman sat there very quietly, and he said, you know, you are missing the point. And I said, excuse me? And he says, I am from Argentina. You are missing the point. He says, I'm an Argentinian citizen. My wife was Argentinian. My mother and father, I live with my mother and father. And during the time just before the Falkland Wars, what happened was they went through Argentina, and anybody that had a gun, they took your guns and they took you to the soccer stadium. And anybody that went to the soccer stadium never came back. Never came back. My mother, my father, my uncle, they all had firearms because they would go on hunt in the jungle. And they never came back. Well, I moved to America. I became an American citizen. I'm naturalized. I raised my children here because you can own guns and the government will never take your guns away. And now you are all talking about laws to take away your guns. He said, I have no other country that I can go to. And we all sat there and looked at him. And here's a foreigner, a person, a naturalized United States citizen, talking about, you know, the very thing that you're talking about, Val, being herded into the soccer stadium, and they hear the rat-a-tat-tat of the machine guns all night long, and no one ever comes back.
This isn't hundreds of years ago.
No,
it's
this
not
is
thousands of years ago.
This is in the 70s and 80s. So, you know, am I a conspiracy theorist of the government? Not necessarily, but I got to give it to you this way. When you see enough smoke, you got to start wondering where those embers are.
Right. And this is all in the 1900s. This isn't ancient history. This is, like I said, from 1911 to 1990. And President Obama has already issued 23 gun-related executive orders in his term.
So it could happen. I guess the people in the countries that it did happen never thought it would happen, and then it did happen. So, well, Mark Redeker, it's been great to talk to you. Thanks so much for letting us into your store, Maui Ammo and Gun Supply. And this is the Maui Liberty Network. My name is Joe Kent, and our co-host is Valerie Sisneros. If you like the show or you're passionate about what we're talking about, please visit us at MauiLibertyNetwork.com. Thank you so much for joining us, and take care.
They're cutting up the Constitution. Well, you know, it's USA's, it's not the world's. Your one world order execution. Well, you know, it's stealing from our boys and girls. But when you talk about destruction of our freedoms, you can count me out.